Tuned in to Coder Conversations. Joining us today is David H. Lawrence, the 17th, actor, voiceover actor, and much more. I'm Kevin,
And I'm the co-host, Brian.
and you're now tuned in to Coder Conversations. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a pleasure. Just to get things started, can you explain the 17th for those who may not know?
How much time you have?
As much as you want to take up.
So I've written a whole made-up backstory about 17th that I send to fans who ask me about it. But the truth of the matter is that when I was joining the union, at the time it was SAG, now it's SAG-AFTRA, but when I was joining the union, one of the requirements for joining the union is you have to have a unique name.
Okay.
And if you go on IMDb, you'll find that there are 16 other, maybe more now, but in those days, this was 2004 or 5, there were 16 other David Lawrences, all with Roman numerals after their name on IMDb. So as I was looking at my name, and none of the versions that we were coming up with as I was on the phone with SAG-AFTRA, they're like, no, you can't do David Lawrence. There was a makeup guy in the 70s. He's in the union. Can't do D.H. Lawrence. He's a famous writer. Can't do this. Can't do that. Wow. And I'm looking at my IMDb page, and it says David H. Lawrence, and then in parentheses, XVII, because I was the 17th David Lawrence on IMDb. So I was joking with her, and I'm on the phone, right? And I'm like, how about this? How about David H. Lawrence the 17th? And she goes, great. Click. So
interesting story, man.
It's worked out. It's worked out.
No, that's definitely makes you stand out.
Yeah. It could have been a little dangerous. People like, really? That's what you want to use for your name? But it's become sort of a talking point, and I haven't had anybody, say anything negative about it. Maybe they're just keeping it quiet, all the criticism, but it seems to be fine. Yeah.
So you've touched pretty much all the different fields of media. You've been actor, voiceover actor. Can you give us a little bit of background, some of the bigger projects that you've worked on?
So most people know me from television, film, in particular, a show that was pretty popular called Heroes. I was one of the creepy, evil villains that could not have been killed, apparently, unless they canceled the show, which they did. But I've been on a little over 100 projects. Before that, I was in radio, both local and syndicated radio, and all through my life, the idea of technology has been weaving its way through. Even when I was in college in the 70s, I went to Ohio State University on a dual degree for broadcast communications, which I was really into radio at the time, broadcast communications, and computer and information sciences. That's what it was called then. In high school, I was in the computer room all the time. We had just a basic teletype connected to a mainframe for my sophomore year or something. My sophomore year, and then my junior year, we got access to a PDP-11, and then we got our own Wang computer, which was a mini computer, and punch cards, and no more teletype with punch paper tape. So it was a really interesting time. And now people look back on it like, did you know that Bill Gates and Bill Joy spent 10,000 hours in a computer room with a teletype connected to a mainframe? And I'm like, yeah, so did I. So did I. I ended up I worked at NASA. I worked at a company called Chi Corporation at Case Western. I worked at DARPA when it was called ARPA. So I've worked at America Online, I've worked at Google, I've worked at XVII Home. So a lot of different opportunities, all while wanting to do performance, all while wanting to do voiceover and radio, and later in life on camera. And so it's been fun. And I've been really grateful to have had the opportunity to do so many different things. And it's, never a dull moment kind of stuff, but that's kind of what my life has been like.
Yeah, sounds like you've been blessed, man.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you pivoted out of technology and into the world of media. I'm pretty much well, I'm not going to say the opposite, but I pivoted from accounting into technology. And
Yeah. Yeah, and like you guys, coders, I was a coder in the 70s and early 80s, but with linear programming, not object-oriented
Okay.
programming. I was doing Fortran and PL1 and BASIC for sure. I bought the David All book called 101 Basic Games, and it was this big,
yeah,
like coffee table paperback book. I bought two copies, one to have a copy
Wow.
that was kept in, decent shape, like for all time. And then another one that I took a razor blade to and I separated because it was all a bunch of source code listings. And I remember typing in, there was one game, this Star Trek game, and it was all written in BASIC, and I had to convert some of it to the BASIC version that we were using on the GE computer that we were connected to, but I did.
Okay.
And as opposed to the PDP Basic Plus, I think it was called. I don't know. But I also remember that this game was all around the Kobayashi Maru maneuver, and I looked at the random number generator, and you had a 1 in 10 chance of being successful with it. I may have changed that to a 9 out of 10 chance in the code because I was typing the code in myself. I may have. I don't remember, but maybe.
Nice.
yeah, you were in the industry when programming was tough. Like they didn't have, you couldn't just get on the internet and search Stack Overflow for the answer. You really had
No,
to.
listen, this is
Yeah.
the same thing. So I was at club DJ as well. For a long time, I worked in nightclubs. While I was on the air, I worked in some big clubs. I worked in some really crappy little clubs. I did mobile DJ gigs for a while, and it was all manual turntables, Techniques, 1200 SLK Mark IIs, slip pads, vinyl. It was like, I had cases and cases, Peaches records and tapes, cases of 12 inches, right?
Yeah.
So a friend of mine actually gave me, I think it's a DJC or a CDJ, I don't even know, but one of these DJ surfaces that everybody uses now.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the video of Bruno Mars on the Ellen Show, Mark, the DJ that created Uptown Funk, he's working on the surface that my friend gave me. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. I just press a button and it automatically mixes digital versions of these songs on beat and in key, and it knows where the measures are, and like it'll do repeats on beat, and like this is all cheating. Are you kidding me? We had to do these things manually. We had to, slow down we had to do all these things by hand.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I was your age, I felt like such an old fart. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, we're increasingly in the age of abstraction. Like when I came in the industry, it was more abstraction than you, but now, like you almost don't even have to hardly do anything with AI. It spits out a
No,
lot of stuff for you.
I wanted a little bit of custom code for my WordPress site. And I said to ChatGPT, I did a fairly reasonable job of doing the prompt. I had to like adjust it, massage it maybe once or
Yeah.
twice after that. But it spit out this perfect custom HTML for my website, just to hide something until somebody had made an agreement. You know how you'll have a dimmed action until they click the checkbox that says, I
Yeah.
agree to your terms of service.
Right.
And I didn't know how to actually do that at the time. I don't know that I still know how to do it, but man, like literally 5 minutes later, I had what I needed and it was great.
Wow.
And that is a great use. Like I believe that all technology is neutral. And that all technology can be used for good or neutral or really bad stuff. And as an actor and as a voice talent, AI represents, when it's used for synthetic voice work, when it's used for synthetic visuals, it represents pretty much an existential threat
Yeah.
to the future of my livelihood.
Right. What you're doing.
But at the same time, AI is useful for things that don't represent an existential threat to me. They may represent an existential threat to somebody else that I may have paid money to back in the day to get something done, like a graphic artist or a writer or an editor or whatever. And this is nothing new. This is nothing new. We've been dealing with the incursion of digital work for decades. I was the voice of America Online's tech support lines for 28 years.
Wow.
So when you used to call AOL back in the day,
Yeah.
you'd get mad at me before you got mad at a live person.
Okay.
And even back then, people that were doing IVR systems, phone trees, phone prompt systems, had the option of not using a human recorded voice, but using a computer generated voice. It didn't sound very good. It sounded like the Whopper computer in the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. Do you want to play a game? But you could understand it. It's kind of like with AM radio versus FM radio, not high quality on AM radio, but you can tell what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
So they've had this option for a long time. And yet I've done more work in that space than hardly any other space I've worked in. And it's always been the choice of my clients to use a human to do the work.
Yeah.
So we're facing that very same thing with AI. And this is in no way to excuse, like I just got finished listening to 2 books on, the threat of superhuman AI to our entire planet.
Right.
Like if you want to just get scared out of your pants, go listen to or read If Anybody Builds This, Everybody Dies. Yeah. That's the title of one book. And the other book is Yuval Harari's Nexus. They're both, apocryphal tales and cautionary tales about what could happen if the threat of Skynet becoming self-aware actually happens.
Right.
And it's not just our planet that would be destroyed, but they'll send ships to other planets to make sure this never happens again. We don't need humans. Nobody needs humans.
Right.
So anyway.
We're disposable.
Yeah. We talked a lot about that on the show, like the potential threats of AI. And yeah, like you mentioned, it goes far beyond just our employment. It could, we have this super intelligent thing. You don't know if it's benevolent or malevolent. And I mean, at that point, you're at its whim. Like if it wants to treat you as a pet or dispose you, then.
Yeah. And I see my co-senior citizens using Perplexity, doing this all the time, looking at their phones, doing Perplexity. And it's like, you realize what you're doing here. You're relying on something that might not be telling you the truth. There might be a hallucination going on. Who knows? But yeah, so.
Yeah, and I think, the AI is like incredibly intelligent as much as they want to tell us that it's not. I mean, it knows most of us better than we know ourselves. So the potential for it to manipulate us is extremely high.
Yeah.
Like, so like in terms of how you've been using AI, how has it really benefited what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it depends on the application, but like even there's editing software right now as we're recording this right now. If you're a startup or if you're a .com and you're not using the word AI in your marketing materials, you're dying a slow death. It feels like.
Right.
And so almost every digital audio workstation, digital video editing station, software, they all have some form of AI. Like as an example, Descript, if you want to edit with the speech to text caption file as opposed to editing with the visuals, you can do that.
Right.
And if you misspeak, if you say like maybe what you meant to say was, I'll see you next Tuesday, but it came out, see you next Thursday. Descript can do a fairly good job of modeling your voice just based on the 5 or 10 minute piece that you've done. I mean, look at what Sora does, right? But just the 5 or 10 minute piece that you've done, and can then fix that and make you say, I'll see you on Tuesday rather than I'll see you on Thursday. And I just have to be honest, all throughout my life, as I've recorded raw audio or been recorded at a studio, that's not the audio that the public hears. If I go in and I record, I did a commercial for Carl's Jr. And we were probably in the studio for like an hour, and we recorded maybe, all told, maybe 12, 15 minutes worth of audio. I had another talent that I was working with, and they had to make some calls to the agency and to the creative team. It was just the engineer, the producer, the director, and us. But there was all this content that nobody ever heard because it was digitally removed from what was left, the final product. And that final product was EQ'd. And it took place on a football field. I was a sports announcer interviewing the wide receiver for the team, who didn't drop a pass because before each game, he would go to Carl's Jr. and get the French toast sticks and eat them with the syrup. And so his hands were sticky. That was the commercial, right? So, you're getting the slap back added from the stadium, because we're on the loudspeakers, and he was on the left channel and I was on the right channel, kind of, we're across the stereo spectrum. All of this stuff was artificially produced. We didn't record it that way. There weren't two microphones set up and I was on one side and he was on the other. We were on our own microphone and in each of our own isolated booths. And the slapback was added and the EQ was added. All this fake stuff was added and has been that way since the days of analog.
Right.
And we've never had a problem with that. Nobody's ever said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you EQ'd that guy so he sounded more ballsy." Really? That didn't happen. Nobody's ever said that. But now, if you're going to use AI, you're violating principle. And I am, again, very well aware that AI could, and likely already has, replaced me in some of the projects that I might have been hired for before.
Right.
Maybe the budget didn't cover my ask. I have a quote that I get when I do work. Maybe the project itself wasn't a project that was going to generate enough money or enough exposure to be able to hire any human to do the work. Or maybe, like with a project where maybe it's you get to pretend you do a system where it'll tell you the weather in any location on Earth. So you want to know the weather in Poughkeepsie, New York, you click a button and it will say to you the weather in Poughkeepsie, New York. Well, no human being is going to be able to do that kind of an IVR system, right? It just doesn't, there's not enough time. And there's way too many outlets, right? Any city around the world, there's 60,000 cities around the world. So there's a lot of reasons why that could happen. But it's a little weird to me to think back to the days when I was cutting reel-to-reel tape with a razor blade, and I was cutting out the mistakes and leaving in the good stuff and running it through an analog reverb unit and an EQ unit and an Aphex unit to make it brighter, and nobody was like ticked off about that, but they're really ticked off that you could use AI because it's the two letters together, AI, that strikes fear in the heart of a lot of performers. And I completely understand that, and I agree with a lot of it. But, it's just the current incarnation of how tools help us refine our work. It may be the death of us. Yeah. But, so I don't know. I think about this stuff a lot.
So do you use AI a lot in your work or not at all?
I wouldn't say not at all. I do, like, I solve the blank page problem a lot with AI. I don't find myself usually with writer's block in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually writing a book right now, and I don't use AI for the writing. I don't use AI. I use AI to generate ideas.
Okay.
So I teach voiceover, and there was a time a few years ago where I was using ChatGPT in one of its very first incarnations. And I said, come up with 10 different titles for a live stream to promote a voiceover course that revolved around audiobooks. And it came up with some stuff that was okay,
Right.
but there wasn't anything on the page when I first started, and I thought, I'll try this. And so occasionally I'll use, and I've played with Sora. I played with a lot of tools that people play with, but I don't rely on it for creative output. I may rely on it to generate some ideas, but for the most part, I don't really think it's that good.
Yeah.
I think that as long as humans can identify that something has been created with AI, certainly with graphics, 6 toes on a foot, misspelling the words on signs because graphics are still difficult for AI. Just in general, those really creepy and recognizable 11 Labs voices like Adam and Daniel and all the others. It's like you hear them and you go, okay. But yeah, it's not really a tool, but I can see as time goes on using them. And I can also see the sort of normalization of things where legislation catches up with technology, humans advocate on their own behalf, despite the fact that it's their own fault that this is happening.
Right.
You listen to somebody like Sam Altman talk, or you listen to Mark Zuckerberg talk, and you hear them say things that are just egregious when it comes to human relations. So there's a lot going on all at once. It's a moving target, but no, I don't really use it at all. So I'm aware of it and I play with it, but I don't use it for my work, I think, is the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've
Yeah,
been
I don't use it either.
Yeah. You don't?
No. Do you use it, Kev?
I mean, I use it like I don't speak with the chat bot, but I use like AI
You don't
powered
do it for
tools.
coding? You don't do any vibe coding?
No. I prefer doing things by hand in terms of coding, but in terms of editing the podcast, they have some excellent like AI powered tools like to remove the filler sounds, etc.
So, can I talk about that, please?
Mhm.
This is the core of what I do. I teach people how to do voice work. Be careful about being so clever in getting rid of your filler words and your breaths and your lip smacks and that which makes you human, that you remove the humanity from what you do.
Yep.
There's a reason why I just said, because I'm creating a bridge between one thought and another thought. I don't use a lot of filler words. I don't spend a lot of time saying, so like, yeah, no, yeah, but I don't do that.
Yeah. Right.
There are people who do. But at the same time, that which is imperfect so makes us human.
Yeah.
And when you get rid of those imperfections, you're in many ways getting rid of the humanity that it's still there when you're all done. I just read an article that was, I think, in the New York Times about a classical pianist who talks about perfection and how it's the imperfections of performances that make them so memorable.
Yeah.
In many ways.
100%.
So just be careful
100%.
about, getting rid of all your breaths and your filler words. And by the way, they're called vocalization bridges, technically.
Okay.
Not filler words is just so much easier to say,
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to learn from you on that. But no, I definitely agree. You want to keep it organic. I remove like long pauses. Well, I let the AI remove that. And
and you remove mistakes. Like if you go up on a line and you're doing a commercial, they're going to edit that out.
Yeah.
So there's a rainbow range of things that you can do to get rid of things, some of which make all kinds of sense, and some of which might just be too smart for our own britches. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I think like if you overuse the tools, it turns into something else. Like you ruin a perfectly good thing by just
And you
stirring the
can,
pot too much.
and you can do that with tools that we've been using for almost 100 years now. Things like EQ
Yeah.
and reverb and
Right.
gating and expansion and compression and all that limiting, and you can overuse all that and just ruin the sound of what you're doing, or you can create something brand new, slapback echo, all the stuff that the Beach Boys did and the Beatles did back in the day with analog recording that
Yeah.
nobody was doing.
Right.
So who knows what's going to happen, but yeah, it's always fun to talk about that.
So like what is your like the level where you can say, okay, I've done this tastefully, where I'm not overdoing it, but also I'm doing it enough to an extent to make an improvement.
So certainly cutting out mistakes, cutting out misspeaking, the wrong words. I teach people how to use a system that I call the stair-step method for doing long-form narration, audiobooks, podcasts, etc. And we talk about the notion of storytelling versus pursuit of perfection. I say that the pursuit of perfection is often the enemy of shipping as well as humanity. You can work so hard to make something perfect that you never end up shipping it.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that wants to make sure that people know that you can do just enough work to make it understandable, to make it enjoyable, without having to continually tinker with it to the point where you never actually release it to the public. I can only imagine that there are artists, there are musicians, there are writers, there are poets, there are people who create content in all different categories, influencers, who have stuff we've never seen because they're too busy making it better. Whereas we could have been enjoying it in whatever somewhat close to perfect position or condition that it's been in, but we'll never
Sure.
see it because they're too busy worried about how, if I just do this one little thing,
Right.
I'm sure there are screenplay writers out there who have been working on movie scripts for decades, or novelists who've
Yeah.
been working on novels for decades,
Yeah.
and they're just afraid to pull the trigger because of potential criticism, or because they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, I could have done that so much better. And I've heard actors talk about the idea that they'll see themselves on screen and go, oh, why did I should have raised my eyebrow on that.
Right.
Just put it out there, let people enjoy it.
Oh no, I definitely agree, because one thing is today's perfect is tomorrow's dated. So you release this so-called perfect thing, then time passes. You're like, it's not as good as I thought anyway. So
And you can't really
Yeah.
predict what's going to sound. By the way, stop me if I talk too much. If you just have questions you want to ask me, because you won't be able to shut me up. But I'm writing this book, right? And I was just going to write the book. It's about a process I use to stay productive called the Ivy Lee method, right? And I was just going to write it all on instinct. I've written a couple of books before, one of which was a pretty good bestseller. It was about HTML and tech book. How hard can that be? It can be hard, right? It wasn't for me. It was just painful. So this time around, I'm getting on in years, and I'd like to leave something that is somewhat timeless. And so I thought, okay, before I start writing this book, I'm going to read a couple of books on writing nonfiction books. I'm going to take a course or two on nonfiction books, the self publishing of that,
Right.
the creation of nonfiction books that you're doing to make them timeless, and recommendable. And so I've started reading Write Useful Books, and also write useful books, and also AJ's Write a Must Read. And they both really take a look at the reader first and how to build a book from the reader's perspective so that they are given the most benefit, that you create a promise for the reader, and so on. So I'm doing this and I'm thinking to myself, I don't need to make this perfect. I need to make this useful. I need to make this appreciable and recommendable. It's never going to be perfect. And so I'm trying to remember if I'm answering the question that you asked, but it was like, what do you do how do you know when you're finished with the process and can like put it out there? I'm not one of these people who loves to rewrite over and over and over again. It's one of the things I hate about writing itself is that I wrote this. Why do I have to rewrite it? Well, if you want to make it better, you have to rewrite it. So I'm learning an awful lot about that process and where to stop and the difference between writing and editing. And so, anyway, I don't have an ending for that story.
This all makes me think of last time I was at a mastering session I make video game music, and the engineer, like Game Boy, Super Nintendo, Sega, that kind of like sound of stuff. But so I'm in there and the engineer is just, we're just chopping it up, talking about stuff. And he said, this one guy has been in here in and out for maybe 7 or 8 years. And it's this guitarist, I forget his name, but he was one of the last guitarists to play with Miles Davis. So he has like a lot of clout. But the engineer was just like, just put it out. Why are you going over and over and over these songs?
Artists are very singular creatures. There are people in all forms of art, which is one of the reasons I love jazz, because it's inherently imperfect.
Oh yeah.
It's never, you're never going to get to be perfect. And so that gives you kind of this escape valve, right? Like you don't have to worry about it. And then you have people who are absolute control freaks who, again, I'm not sure if, what they've done, we'll ever hear some of the stuff that they've done, when I think about how much stuff Prince produced and how perfection oriented he was, how perfection oriented Stevie Wonder is, Phil Collins. I don't know if Taylor Swift is, or if Meghan Trainor is perfection oriented. I don't know, but they're massively productive, and I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, you spend all this time perfecting something, and the audience or whoever the listener, they don't even really care about it like that. Like, they don't even notice it.
Yeah.
So that time you spent tweaking little imperfections could actually be producing more creative work, So yeah, that perfectionism is definitely.
Are we even talking about what you normally talk about on this podcast?
Oh yeah, we talk about everything. We just
talk
kind
about everything.
Because we've talked very little about coding. So
no, it's not a coding podcast anymore. It used to be.
Yeah, it used to be. It used to be. I joined on about 1.5 years ago, and I started booking people in entertainment, actors, singers, all different types of people. So we do everything now. We try to mix it up,
Your life, productivity, wherever the conversation goes, it keeps it interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah, just like you mentioned, like perfectionism, I feel like you try to make things too structured, it loses its organic nature, and there's something off-putting about it. I don't know what it is. I think humans, they like structure, but not too much. It kind of.
Also, they are fearful.
Yeah.
I often talk about the 3 big fears of being a creative type, of being an artist. One is the fear of the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. Another is fear of failure.
Yeah.
You're going to fail miserably. You're never going to work in this town again. And then the third one is fear of success. Oh my God, if I'm good at this, have I just created another job for myself? Do I even want to do this? I feel like I'm pretty good at writing, but I don't enjoy it all that much. I don't enjoy the process the way I enjoy acting, or the way I enjoy narrating an audiobook, or the way I enjoy other categories of voiceover or teaching people this stuff, I don't enjoy writing that much. I haven't figured out how to do that. I'd like to, but I haven't yet. But I think people are fearful because they go, wow, I didn't expect that I'd be doing this for the rest of my life. Maybe I don't want to do this, even though I can do it well.
Yeah, it makes me think of kind of my life right now. I teach drums, and I would rather teach a drum lesson than go to some club and, jam for an hour.
Really?
There's just something in me that has shifted over time. I used to like performing a lot, but I lived in LA for about 10 years. But now I really enjoy the process of teaching.
That's
because
great.
what I've noticed is that students will teach you if you're humble enough to realize that your student has knowledge that you don't have.
Yeah,
it's very powerful. Yeah, very powerful.
Something I've kind of found out about success is like it's more so discovering your innate inclination than trying to force something. Like initially I wanted to be an artist, but like with you in writing, like I could draw pretty good, but it wasn't that fun to me. And then I switched over to accounting, got a degree in that, hated it. But for whatever reason, programming I just enjoy it. It's just like therapeutic. Like I can sit in front of a computer for hours and do it. I don't know why. I just can.
It's awesome.
The more you do something, you just get better. I don't know why, but somehow you just get better.
And I think that's also a really interesting example of left brain versus right brain people, and that most people are combos of that. Like I feel like I'm certainly, there's ample evidence that I can do creative work, but I really like doing work where there's no creativity involved whatsoever. Like 2 + 2 actually does equal 4. And if you can rely on that and build on that, great. I get a great deal of joy when things work out to the penny, right?
Right.
But I also get a great deal of joy when somebody comes up to me at a con and says, man, you scared the crap out of me. In that one scene where you had the thing up to her neck and okay.
Like do you abide by any of those frameworks, like let's just say Briggs Meyer or the Working Genius or any of those? Do you get any use out of that?
Sure. I mean, I have taken every psychological inventory test that's like I think ever been created. Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, Enneagram, MMPA, I think it is. I don't know. I was told in high school when I took that particular test, I could do anything except be an astronaut or a neurosurgeon.
Wow.
What did I do? What do you mean I can't be a neurosurgeon? Don't make me go be a neurosurgeon. What? Yeah. So, I agree. I think you have to take those, like, to a certain degree, because of the inherent nature of how you answer questions and how the questions are asked and what kind of cultural bias might be involved in the asking of the question, the construction of the question, the answers provided. You have to kind of take all that with a grain of salt. So it's a little bit like horoscopes. But at the same time, there's a lot of indicators, like my top 5 strengths are dead on me. And not like the fact that I'm a Virgo with asparagus rising is dead on me. That's not true. But the notion that I am a learner and a maximizer and an ideator and a teacher and a relator, yeah, those are all things that I can see every single day in what I do. And I can also see at the end of the list the things that I'm not very good at. Those make sense to me. And so I think that sometimes people do those things and they don't really look at the results and think, well, how can I apply this, right? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, pretty much along those lines.
Okay.
I'm personally, the Myers-Briggs, I'm an NJ or whatever, and I found that like extremely accurate. That's like I guess a strategist or architect or something like.
So what are your
Same
4
here.
letters? What are your
Same
4
here.
letters?
INTJ.
Okay, so I'm an enfudge. I'm an ENFJ.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I remember it, by saying enfudge. So yeah, and I've looked at it and I'm like, yeah, you're judgmental. Get over your bad self. You're judgmental. So just embrace it. I think once you see that, and then at the same time, don't let it limit you. Just
Right.
because I'm ENFJ doesn't mean there are times when I'm not intuitive, you know?
That's right.
So
I think it's really good for like teamwork, kind of assessing like your strengths and then your weaknesses, and you can team up with somebody who has. But people, there are people who love to do what you hate to do, and it's like
thank
That's
God.
right.
Thank God.
so I think that's how like me and Brian we work. Like he like he does the booking, I do more of the technical stuff, and that's pretty much our fortes. And
Yeah.
us working together, we're able to kind of complement each other versus us doing the same thing and having that huge gap there. Like, have you kind of like utilized all of this to assemble your team in any capacity?
Well, the funny thing was, maybe 8 years ago, I have a business, and I have 7 coaches on our team that
Yeah.
do training along with me, and also some people working on tech and some people working on admin. And maybe it's been a decade, I don't know, almost. I had a StrengthsFinder expert come in and hold an in-service day-long thing where we looked at the grids of all the strengths. She had them do the StrengthsFinder test ahead of time and then analyzed everybody.
Okay.
And at the time, kind of confirmed that we had arranged things in a way that was really productive, but also had some really keen insights as to how we could do some things differently that might be an advantage. And some of them were absolutely that. So that's truly what StrengthsFinders was designed to do. StrengthsFinders in particular is owned by the Gallup Corporation, which
Yeah.
is most people know them from polls. The CBS
Yeah.
Gallup poll says blah blah blah.
Right.
But that's a very tiny part of their business. Their bigger business is business intelligence, of which StrengthsFinders is a part. And so, big companies use this to sort of arrange teams in a way that are more productive and more taking advantage of what people are all about. So, yeah, we've done that.
Like a synergy.
Yeah.
So like which one of these have you found to actually be like to actually provide value versus the kind of like the ones that are fluff, like, oh, this is just
I don't know that any of them are fluff. I think
okay.
that anything involving mythology is a little bit of an issue. I think when you base your decisions on your birth date or the alignment of the stars, there are people that definitely believe in that. I am not one of them. Numerology, not interested. Colors, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I just feel like when you ask somebody a question and they give you an answer, there's going to be meaning, both inherent in the answer and the meaning that's applied by the person both asking the question and giving the answer. And those cultural shadings are the most fascinating things to me. It's how I build a character. It's how I bring hopefully joy and strike terror into people that watch what I do, or hear what I do. I think all those things are very, very interesting, and they have their uses in the world of business and technology as well as art. I don't know that I can point to any one other than what I'm sure there's somebody watching this going, "You don't believe in horoscopes? What's wrong with you?"
Right.
If that's how you want to look at me, as having something wrong with me, okay. But I think that just in general, that's that part of my brain that's working, and the other part of my brain that's going, nope, not me.
Right.
So like in life, we don't always have all the facts in front of us, especially in business as you become a leader or, acting, voice acting, where you're creating these characters. So in the face of ambiguity, how do you come to a conclusion and kind of make sure that it's actually right, it's leading you to where you want to go?
So sometimes you just have to embrace the fog. You have to embrace the fact that you're not going to have all the answers. Life is, I think, if you play it, well, it's not a test, and yet it is a test. You're going to be given results based on the decisions that you make, and if you make better decisions, if you make poor decisions, that will become pretty evident pretty quickly. I think, though, that we sometimes tend to ignore the evidence that we have in front of ourselves. When I create a character, the script has been labored over by a writer. When it's a commercial script, it's been labored over by a writer and a brand manager and legal and the CEO and the founder of the company and the founder of the company's trophy spouse. Like it's been reviewed by an awful lot of people before it got into my hands.
Right.
So I just rely on that. It's like, there's a reason why this word is here as opposed to here, or that this word is this word rather than a different word.
Right.
So I kind of just rely on my production partners to do their job and take that evidence and use it for my job. Some people cannot let go of the control that they need to do that work. And I've faced challenges with that as well. It's like, I don't think the script is all that good. Really?
Right.
Did you write the script, David? No, you didn't. Did they write the script? Did they get it sold? Did they get paid to do this? Shut up. Do the work. Make them look brilliant. Do the work. So, did that answer your question? I hope.
Oh, I forgot what the question was, but I'm sure it did answer.
Well, then it's I win.
So, just in terms of, modern day, currently, what are you working on? What's the new project that you have going on, if you can speak to it?
Yeah, some things I can't talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
The book is for me, as I'm headed into a holiday season here, and I don't have family to visit, and I don't have any. The industry kind of shuts down between mid-December and the beginning of January. And I don't know how evergreen your episodes are, but as we're recording this, I just feel like I'm being given this gift of downtime.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use it to make my life happier and better, and work on some projects that I've had on my radar for a while. And I've made the decision to move my training platform and community to a new platform. And that is not a simple, easy lift. That's a pretty heavy lift. So I'm kind of doing a lot of thought work around that and some actual physical work around that as well, some exploration work.
Okay.
In terms of television and film, it's funny because people go, so how do you choose the roles that you decide you're going to play? And I'm like, is it union work? Is there a place I'm supposed to be on set? That's how I choose. If there isn't, then I'm not given the opportunity anyway. So that's not how I'm not even in the A, B, C, D categories of, I'm not an A-lister. I'm not a B-lister. I'm not even anywhere close to that. I am a working actor that has done some decent character work and occasionally been given a glimpse at what might be someday that we can never predict. We don't know what's coming down the pike. We can't safely predict what's going to happen. If you told me 6 months before Heroes happened that you'd be on the #1 television show on both NBC in the United States and the BBC in the UK and around the world, known for 3 seasons on this show, I'd have said, you are out of your mind. I haven't even finished acting school. I don't know what the hell you're talking. I don't have an agent. What are you talking about? And yet things like that happen, and you can't predict if they're going to happen. So just when I look around me and I see my peers, some of which are older than I am, going, I'll never work again. Nobody's ever going to hire me. I'm done. And then they get an 8-character run on a really popular television show, or they get into a film that just starts to garner award after award after award. You think to yourself, the vagaries of this business, of all creative businesses, are so unpredictable that all you can do is try your very best to be prepared and to serve your production partners. Take care of them, as my friend Michael Kostroff says. Take care of the casting directors and the producers and the directors and the writers and your other fellow actors and voice talent. Take care of them. Be of service. And it's amazing what happens back to you, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like planting those seeds where you're giving, it eventually result in you receiving because you get
Maybe,
paid back.
maybe not.
Maybe,
Maybe
okay.
you'll do a whole lot of Sisyphean work that nobody ever notices, nobody gives a rat's ass about, and you'll never like, I don't know who it was in my life that said this most of the time. Most of the time, it's a really good idea to just do what helps you and others without any expectation of being thanked
Yeah.
or of reward. You know,
Yeah.
I see people get really, really bitter when they do something nice for somebody and they don't get a thank you card in return, or they don't
Right.
get
Right.
a telephone call. It's like, well, did you do it for that? Or did you
Right.
do it because you're inherently a good person, and whether they thank you or not, maybe they're just having too much time, too much fun enjoying what you did, and they
Yeah.
haven't even thought about thanking you, or maybe they said thank you and you missed it. Who knows? Who knows? But it's like not the like, I decouple that outcome from the process. I'm just not interested. If somebody thanks me, I love it. If somebody rewards me, I love it. If I do work, I have a union that protects me and I get paid. But I'm
Yeah.
not expecting kudos or accolades. I look at award ceremonies. I've won a lot of awards in my life. And I think to myself, sometimes award ceremonies are created so that we can feel good about those moments that don't usually happen very often to artists. You know, we get a lot more no's than we get yeses.
That's right.
And most of those no's happen in silence. Like when I audition for a role, I find out that I didn't get it when I see the episode on television and I see the guy or the woman that they gave the part to. That's when I
Right.
find out that I didn't get it, right?
Because they don't call you. They don't let you know, hey,
I mean, just the numbers.
they don't have the
make it
time.
next to exactly.
Yeah.
There are hundreds and hundreds of people that they can see for every single role. And if you've
Every
got an
role.
episode of
Yeah.
television that has, I don't know, 12 co-stars and guest stars on it, including the separate from the core cast, the series regulars, you know, that's thousands of people that they're seeing every week for these parts. That's why they only see 4 seconds of your self-tape, because they know right away if you're worth watching more of it or not. And if that happens to me, well, that happens to me. I made a choice. Here's what I'm thinking this role's about. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's great. But it's not about the outcome. It's about the joy of doing the work. And so I don't worry about it too much. In fact, I don't worry about it at all. And that drives my agent a little crazy. You know, it certainly drives those people that I see really holding on to things in the, you know, when you go to a live audition and you're in the outer waiting area and you see these people that are just losing themselves over the notion that they have to make sure that they're word perfect, and you know, they're pre-building their audition so that they raise their eyebrow on the second "the" in the sentence. You know,
Right.
they just are so tightly wrapped around the axle about these things, and it's like it takes all the joy out of it.
Yeah.
Like I want to go in there and go, "Hey, everybody, welcome to my audition.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here." That's what I did when I went in for Heroes. There were 11 people in the room, and I knew that there were going to be 11 people in the room, even though everybody else in the room, out in the waiting room, they weren't paying any attention. When that door opened, I positioned myself across the room from the door so I could see inside. Everybody else was like, "Hey, John, how you doing? I haven't seen you since the '70s, man. What you know?" They're all like, communing with each other, and there were some really well-known people in that waiting room. People who had scared the crap out of me on television and in film for years.
Wow.
Right? And I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing here. I found out why I was there later, but what am I doing here, right? Somebody here is going to get it, not me. And I just learned in that moment to be happy for them if they got it, and happy for me if I got it,
That's powerful.
But I walked in knowing that there were 11 people in the room. Usually there's 1 or 2 or maybe 3.
Right.
But remember, this was the anchor show on NBC. This was Monday night, 9 o'clock, later 10 o'clock. And it was a co-production with the BBC. There were millions of dollars being poured into every episode of this show. It was really important. So they had people there from the production company. They had people there from the casting agency. They had people there from the writers team. The director was there. The showrunner was there. Tim Kring was there. There were people from the network there. And I saw all these people and I was like, oh, that's interesting. As opposed to what I watched every single other guy go in and do and go when he walked through the door, because you don't expect that many people in the room.
No.
I walked in and I'm like, hey, sup, bitches. Welcome to my audition. I didn't say sup, bitches. But that was the attitude. It was like, hey, I'm glad to be here. Let's see if we can help you out. Right? And it was just joyous. It was just joyous to pay attention and see that happen. So, yeah.
So I would say my final question for tonight would be, for all those listening that are kind of entry level, very green, just starting out, and they want to get into acting or voiceover work, what's the number one tip that you could give them in terms of getting started?
Be brave. Do it. Don't be worried if you're going to mess things up or make mistakes. You are. I can share that with you right now. You're going to make horrifying mistakes. You're going to make embarrassing gaffes, and you're not going to be very good in the beginning. That's okay. Do it anyway. If you really want to do this, if this is what is, and this goes for anything. This goes for being an accountant. This goes for being a drummer. There are a lot of ways to say, well, the world has enough accountants. I'm never going to get on stage as a drummer. There are drummers already with the jobs,
Right.
There are plenty of CPAs out there. If I want to go beyond just being an accountant and I want to be a certified public accountant,
Right.
there are lots of people already doing the job. There are 170 some odd thousand people that are members of SAG-AFTRA. That means at some point in time, they got a job that was at least union minimum on a union contracted show, and now they're a member of the union. Do you know how many of those people work every year?
Pretty few.
Less than 5,000.
Wow.
That's how many roles there are for people. So yeah, there's already more than enough people to do the job. Right? More than enough. But if you really want to do whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to pursue, this is very simplistic, very, I know it's not deep, but step across that threshold. Walk through the door. Be brave enough to be awful in the beginning, to invite the comments of who told you could do this? What dream did you have that made you wake up and go, I'm going to do this? What happened to you? Did you get sick one night? Did you have food poisoning? What happened? Did you take peyote? What was it that made you do that? Just be waiting for those slings and arrows and then be persistent. I'm telling you, you'll get better, you'll get better, you'll get better. Even if you never achieve world-class excellence, you'll get better at it. You will. You can't help but get better if you are persistent. So from the very beginning, be brave, be persistent, just do it. That's what I got.
Awesome.
Amazing advice, man. It was definitely a pleasure having you on the show. We're at the top of the hour. Before we get out of here, do you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts? And where can they find you at?
If you want to read about what I do, you can go to David H. Lawrence, XVII.com. So David H. Lawrence, XVII.com. I'm sure someone on your team will put it in the show notes. Isn't that what everybody says with podcast episodes? It's certainly what I say. If you're interested in learning how to narrate audiobooks or be a voice talent or that sort of thing, there's links to my websites all over the web. If you just Google XVII, I think I'm on the first page 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
But whatever you want to do, just reach out. I'm pretty accessible. I'm not hiding behind the internet. So
yeah.
No, man, you're a fountain of wisdom, man. And we'll definitely have to get you back and talk about the million other things we missed out on.
I'd be happy to do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, you coming on.
We'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.